The stars had always seemed peaceful from Earth. For thousands of years, humans had looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They built telescopes. They sent radio signals into the void. They dreamed of meeting other beings who might share their curiosity about the universe. They never imagined that when contact finally came, it would come with chains. The Galactic Council had ruled the known galaxy for 12,000 years. They were old, they were powerful, and they had a system that worked very well for them. When a new species developed faster than light travel, the Council would arrive with a simple offer. Surrender your world, give up your weapons, and accept your place at the bottom of galactic society. In exchange, you would be allowed to live. No species had ever refused. The Council's fleets were vast. Their technology was ancient and terrible. And they had crushed every rebellion before it could begin. When their sensors detected humanity's first warp signature coming from a small yellow star on the edge of the galaxy, they did not worry. They simply sent a delegation to collect another world. Ambassador Zirvex of the Velkari was chosen for this mission. He was tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that shifted colors with his mood. His species had served the Council for 8,000 years, and they had become very good at making lesser beings bow. He arrived in Earth's orbit on a cool morning in March. His fleet of 12 diplomatic vessels took position near the planet's moon. They made no attempt to hide. Why would they? The humans were primitives. Their little warp ship had barely crawled between stars. They posed no threat. Zirvex recorded his message with the calm confidence of someone who had done this many times before. The translation software converted his words into the dominant human languages, and the signal was broadcast to every screen on the planet. People of Earth, his voice echoed across continents. I am Ambassador Zirvex, speaking on behalf of the Galactic Council. Your species has taken its first steps into the greater galaxy. This is a moment of great importance. However, you must understand that space is not empty. It is ruled by law. Our law. He paused, letting his words sink in. You have 72 hours to send a delegation to my vessel. You will sign documents of surrender. You will disarm all military forces. You will accept protectorate status under the Council's guidance. In exchange, your species will be allowed to continue existing. This is not a negotiation. This is a mercy. Do not waste it. The transmission ended. On Earth, chaos erupted. News channels played the message on repeat. Governments called emergency meetings. People filled the streets in confusion and fear. Some prayed. Some rioted. Some simply stared at the sky, trying to spot the alien ships that had just changed everything. In Geneva, the United Nations convened within hours. Leaders from every nation crowded into the Great Assembly Hall, their faces pale with shock. Secretary General Lisa Grant stood at the podium, trying to maintain order as arguments exploded around her. We cannot fight them, the French president insisted. You saw their ships. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. So we just give up? The Brazilian representative demanded. We hand over our planet without even trying? What choice do we have? Lisa raised her hand for silence. The room slowly quieted. There is something you all need to know, she said carefully. Something that has been kept secret for 15 years. She pressed a button on her podium. The main screen behind her flickered to life, showing images that made the entire room gasp. Ships. Human ships. But not like anything the public had ever seen. These were massive vessels of war, bristling with weapons, hiding in the darkness of the asteroid belt. 15 years ago, Lisa continued, a Velkari scout ship crashed in Alaska. We recovered it, we studied it, and we realized that one day, the beings who built it would come looking for us. So we prepared. She changed the image. Now the screen showed fleet formations, construction facilities hidden on distant moons, training programs that had operated in complete secrecy. Project Ironclad, she said. 342 warships, 47 carriers, over 2,000 fighters, built in secret, crewed by volunteers who knew they might never see their families again. Ready for this exact moment. The room was completely silent. "We have a choice," Lisa said firmly. "We can surrender like they expect. We can bow down and hope they treat us kindly. Or we can show them that humanity is not like the other species they have conquered. We can fight." Far above Earth, Admiral Danny Carter stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance. He was 53 years old, with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen too much. He had spent the last decade preparing for a war he hoped would never come. Now it was here. Commander Katie Morgan stood beside him, reviewing tactical data on her screen. She was younger, sharper, with a mind that could process battlefield calculations faster than most computers. "Their fleet is holding position near the moon," she reported. 12 ships. No additional vessels detected in the system. "They really did come alone." Danny nodded slowly. "They think this will be easy. They think we'll just hand over our planet. Will we?" Danny turned to look out the viewport. Earth hung in the darkness, blue and green and beautiful. His home. His family's home. The home of 8 billion people who were counting on him, even if they didn't know it yet. "Contact the fleet," he said quietly. "Tell them to begin moving into position." Quietly. No active sensors. No communications that could be intercepted. Katie's fingers flew across her console. "And the aliens?" Danny smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Let them wait. Let them get comfortable. And when the time comes, we'll show them exactly what happens when you threaten humanity." In the cold darkness of space, hidden among the asteroids, engines began to warm. Crews who had trained for years moved to battle stations. Weapons that had never been fired in anger were loaded and aimed. The Galactic Council had given Earth 72 hours to surrender. They had no idea what was coming. The asteroid belt was cold and dark and empty. At least, that was what it looked like from the outside. For 15 years, humanity had worked very hard to keep it that way. Captain Luke Marshall stood on the observation deck of the USS Liberty, watching the distant sun through reinforced glass. The carrier was massive, nearly a kilometer long, built in secret and hidden in shadow. Around it, dozens of other warships held position, their running lights dimmed, their crews silent. They had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Luke was 41 years old. He had joined Project Ironclad when he was 26, back when it was just a dream and a handful of stolen alien technology. He remembered the early days, when they were still trying to understand how the Valkyrie warp drive worked, when every test flight risked explosion, when every new discovery felt like a miracle. Now they had a fleet that could challenge the stars. "Captain, incoming transmission from Earth," reported Lieutenant Amy Sullivan from her station. She was young, only 28. But she had one of the sharpest tactical minds in the fleet. "Priority Alpha, Admiral Carter." Luke nodded. "Put it through." The holographic display flickered to life, showing Danny Carter's weathered face. Even through the distortion of long-range communication, Luke could see the tension in the older man's eyes. "Luke, I assume you've seen the alien transmission." "We all have, sir. The whole fleet is buzzing about it." "Good. Then you know what comes next." Danny leaned forward slightly. "Begin moving the fleet toward the inner system. Formation Delta 7. No active sensors, no unnecessary communications. We need to be in position before their deadline expires." "Understood, Admiral." "What's our target?" "The alien fleet near Luna. 12 vessels. They think they're here for a surrender ceremony." Danny's voice hardened. "They're wrong." The transmission ended. Luke turned to face his bridge crew. They were all watching him, waiting. These were men and women who had given up normal lives to serve in a secret war. They had trained in hidden facilities, flown ships that officially did not exist, and kept the greatest secret in human history. Now that secret was about to be revealed. "You all heard the Admiral," Luke said. "Set course for the inner system. Keep emissions to minimum. And pass the word to the crew. This is what we've been preparing for. This is why we're here. The Liberty's engines hummed to life. Around it, the hidden fleet began to move. In the darkness between worlds, a snake of human warships stretched toward home. Meanwhile, on the research station orbiting Ceres, Dr. Megan Price reviewed the final diagnostics on the fleet's weapon systems. She was the lead scientist on Project Ironclad, one of the few people who understood exactly how their reverse-engineered technology worked. She had spent 15 years studying the crashed Valkyrie ship. Every night, she dreamed about its strange circuits and alien metals. She had learned to read the species' scientific notation, she had mapped their engineering philosophy, and she had found their weaknesses. The railguns are fully operational, she reported to her assistant, a young man named Paul Torres. All ships are showing green across the board. Paul looked up from his console. Do you think it will be enough? Their technology is still more advanced than ours. Megan smiled slightly. Their technology is old. They haven't had to innovate in thousands of years. They just keep using the same designs because they work. But we've had to be creative. We've had to find new solutions. And that gives us an advantage they don't expect. She pulled up a schematic on the main screen. It showed a Valkyrie shield generator, with red markers indicating stress points. Their shields are designed to deflect energy weapons, she explained. Lasers, plasma, particle beams. But we don't use energy weapons. We use railguns. Solid projectiles accelerated to a fraction of light speed. Simple, brutal, and completely unexpected. Paul stared at the schematic. You think we can punch through their shields? I think we're about to find out. Across the fleet, similar preparations were underway. Engineers ran final checks on weapon systems. Pilots climbed into their fighters and reviewed attack patterns. Medical teams prepared for casualties that everyone hoped would never come. In the carrier bay of the USS Liberty, Commander Sam Peters addressed his squadron of fighter pilots. He was a tall man with a shaved head and a voice that carried across the crowded hangar. Listen up, he said. I know you've all been training for years. I know you've run 1,000 simulations. But this is real. Those are real aliens out there. With real weapons that will really kill you if you make a mistake. He paused, looking at the young faces around him. But you're not going to make mistakes. You're going to fly better than you've ever flown. You're going to fight harder than you've ever fought. And when this is over, you're going to go home to your families and tell them that you helped save humanity. A cheer rose from the pilots. Now get to your ships, Sam ordered. And remember what we're fighting for. 48 hours had passed since the alien transmission. The deadline was approaching. On the bridge of the USS Defiance, Admiral Danny Carter watched the tactical display as hundreds of green icons moved into position around the alien fleet. The Council's ships still showed no sign of alarm. Their shields were down, their weapons were cold. They had no idea they were surrounded. Commander Katie Morgan stepped up beside him. All ships report ready, Admiral. We have complete encirclement. They can't run. Danny nodded slowly. He thought about his daughter, who was probably watching the news right now, terrified like everyone else on Earth. He thought about his father, who had died 3 years ago without ever knowing about Project Ironclad. He thought about all the people who would never know how close they had come to slavery. Send a message to Secretary General Grant, he said. Tell her the fleet is in position. When the deadline expires, we'll be ready. Katie hesitated. Sir, are you sure about this? If we attack, there's no going back. We'll be at war with the entire galaxy. Danny turned to look at her. His eyes were calm, but there was steel beneath the surface. They came here to enslave us, Katie, to take everything we've built and turn us into servants, and they expected us to just accept it. He shook his head. They don't know us. They don't know what humans are capable of when we're pushed into a corner. He looked back at the display, at the tiny dots that represented ships crewed by men and women willing to die for their world. We didn't start this fight, he said quietly. But we're damn sure going to finish it. The clock continued to count down, and in the darkness of space, humanity waited. Ambassador Zirvex was beginning to lose his patience. 70 hours had passed since he delivered the Council's ultimatum to the primitive world below. 70 hours of silence. No delegation had arrived, no messages had been sent. The humans had simply ignored him, as if he were an annoyance rather than the representative of the greatest power in the galaxy. He paced the observation deck of his flagship, the voice of authority, his forearms clasped tightly behind his back. His skin shifted through shades of orange and red, colors that indicated frustration among his species. Perhaps their communication systems are simply inferior, suggested his aide, a younger Velkari named Krix. They may not have the technology to respond properly. Zervix made a clicking sound of irritation. They broadcast entertainment programs across half their planet. They can respond. They choose not to. He stopped at the viewport and stared down at Earth. It was a beautiful world. Really. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling in patterns. In time, it would make a fine addition to the Council's holdings. The humans would learn their place. They always did. How many species have I brought into the fold, Krix? He asked without turning. 17, Ambassador. All successful integrations. 17 species. Some fought at first. Some begged for mercy. Some tried to negotiate. But in the end, they all knelt. They all signed the documents. They all accepted reality. Zervex turned to face his aide. These humans are no different. They are simply slower to understand their situation. Krix nodded respectfully. Should we prepare the subjugation fleet, Ambassador? As a precaution? Zervex considered this. The subjugation fleet was massive. Hundreds of warships designed to crush any resistance. It was currently stationed 3 days' travel away, ready to respond if needed. Not yet, he decided. We have 2 hours remaining before the deadline. The humans will come. They have no other choice. He settled into his command chair and closed his eyes. This mission was supposed to be simple. Arrive, deliver the ultimatum, accept the surrender, move on to the next primitive world. He had done it so many times that it had become boring. He never noticed the shadows moving in the darkness beyond his sensors. On the bridge of the Voice of Authority, Senior Sensor Officer Thax was running his standard patrol sweep. It was routine work, almost meditative. The space around Earth was quiet, empty, completely devoid of any threat. His species had excellent eyes, adapted over millions of years to spot predators in the forests of their homeworld. But eyes meant nothing when you weren't looking in the right direction. Anything to report? Asked the ship's captain, a stern female named Vorka. Nothing, Captain, Thax replied. Local space is clear. No vessels detected beyond our own fleet. Vorka nodded, satisfied. She had served on 17 integration missions and had never encountered any real resistance. The idea that these humans might pose a threat was almost amusing. Maintain standard watch, she ordered. Alert me if anything changes. Nothing did. For another hour, the alien fleet sat peacefully in Earth's orbit, waiting for a surrender that would never come. Then the deadline passed. Ambassador Zervex opened his eyes and checked the time display. 72 hours. Exactly. The humans had failed to respond. Open a channel to their planetary government, he ordered, his voice cold. If they will not come to us, we will go to them. But before Krix could comply, an alarm shrieked across the bridge. Thax's voice was suddenly high with panic. Ambassador! We're detecting contacts. Multiple contacts. Zervex rose from his chair. What kind of contacts? Identify them. I'm trying, sir. But the readings don't make sense. Thax's fingers flew across his console. They're appearing from nowhere. Dozens of them. Hundreds. They were hidden in the asteroid belt, among the debris fields, behind the planet's moons. They were everywhere. And we never saw them. We never saw them. The main display flickered to life, showing a tactical view of the space around the fleet. Red icons were appearing from every direction, surrounding the Council ships like a closing fist. Zervex stared at the display, his skin turning pale gray with shock. That's not possible. he whispered. "Where did they get ships? How did they hide them from us?" "Ambassador, I'm counting over 300 vessels," Thax reported, his voice shaking. "Warships, carriers, fighter craft. They're already at weapons range." Captain Vorka pushed past Zervex to reach the command station. "Raise shields. Power weapons. All ships. Battle alert." "We can't," Thax said quietly. "We're not at battle stations. Our shields are down. Our weapons are cold. By the time we power up, they'll already be on top of us." Silence fell over the bridge. Every Velkari present understood what was happening. They had walked into a trap. The primitive species they had come to conquer had been waiting for them with a fleet that should not exist. Zervex's mind raced. How was this possible? The humans had only developed warp travel recently. They couldn't have built this fleet in just a few years. Unless, the scout ship, he breathed. 15 years ago. We lost a scout ship in this system. We assumed it was destroyed by an asteroid impact. Crix looked at him with horror. "You think they found it? You think they used our own technology against us? I think we have made a terrible mistake." A new alarm sounded. Incoming transmission. On the main screen, a human face appeared. He was older, with gray hair and eyes that held no fear. His uniform was simple, practical, the kind worn by soldiers rather than diplomats. "Ambassador Zervex," the human said, and his voice was calm, almost conversational. "My name is Admiral Danny Carter, commander of Earth's defense fleet. I believe you gave us 72 hours to surrender." Zervex tried to speak, but no words came. "Those hours have passed," the admiral continued, "and I'm afraid we've decided not to accept your offer." The display shifted, showing the full scope of the human fleet. Ships of every size, arranged in perfect formation. Weapons locked onto the council vessels. "You came here expecting sheep," Danny said. "You found wolves instead. You have one chance, Ambassador. One chance to power down your weapons, lower your shields, and surrender peacefully. If you refuse, we will destroy your fleet. And then we will send a message to your council that will be heard across the galaxy." Zervex found his voice at last. "You can't do this. You don't know what you're starting. The council will respond with overwhelming force." Danny smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We're counting on it." The transmission ended. Captain Vorka turned to the ambassador, her eyes wide with fear. "What do we do? Our weapons aren't ready. Our shields are down. If they attack now..." Zervex looked at the tactical display. 300 human warships. 12 council vessels. The math was simple and brutal. "Signal the subjugation fleet," he ordered quietly. "Tell them to come immediately. Tell them the integration has failed. Tell them." He paused, hardly believing the words he was about to speak. Tell them the humans are fighting back. But deep down, he knew the truth. The subjugation fleet was 3 days away. Whatever happened in the next few hours, they would face it alone. And looking at the human fleet surrounding him, Zervex felt something he had never experienced in his long career: fear. The first shot of the Battle of Sol was fired at exactly 14:32 Greenwich Mean Time. It came from the USS Defiance, Admiral Danny Carter's flagship. A single railgun round, accelerated to nearly a tenth of the speed of light, crossed the distance between the human and alien fleets in less than a second. It struck the Voice of Authority's engine section before their shields could fully power up. The explosion was visible from Earth. "All ships, weapons free," Danny commanded, his voice steady despite the thunder of his own guns. "Take them down." The human fleet opened fire. 300 warships, thousands of railgun batteries, missiles by the hundred, fighter craft by the thousand. All of it directed at 12 council vessels that had come expecting surrender. Captain Vorka screamed orders on the bridge of the Voice of Authority as the ship shook from repeated impacts. "Return fire! Target their lead vessel." But the council ships had been designed for intimidation, not combat. Their weapons were powerful but slow to aim. Their shields, built to deflect energy weapons, struggled against the simple brutality of solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. A railgun round punched through the hull of the diplomatic vessel Eternal Wisdom. The ship broke apart in a flower of fire and debris. Another council ship, the Righteous Path, tried to turn toward open space. 3 human destroyers intercepted it, their coordinated fire tearing through its engines. The ship drifted dead, its crew trapped in a metal coffin. On the bridge of the USS Liberty, Captain Luke Marshall commanded his carrier group with practiced precision. Around him, officers called out targeting solutions and damage reports, while his fighter wings swarmed through the battle. Eagle Squadron, cover our bombers, he ordered. Fox Squadron, I want you on that cruiser's port side. Don't let them bring their main guns around. Lieutenant Amy Sullivan tracked the battle on her tactical display. Sir, 3 enemy ships are trying to form a defensive cluster. If they link shields, they might hold out long enough for reinforcements. Then we don't let them link. Luke opened a fleet channel. All assault ships, concentrate fire on the center of their formation. Break them apart. The order was received and obeyed. Dozens of human warships turned their guns on the council vessels trying to regroup. Under that concentrated fire, even alien shields couldn't hold. The Valkyrie cruiser Dominion collapsed inward as its reactor breached. The explosion caught 2 nearby ships, damaging their engines and leaving them vulnerable. In the chaos of battle, Commander Sam Peters led his fighter squadron directly into the heart of the enemy formation. His craft was small and fast, designed for exactly this kind of close combat. Stay tight. Stay focused, he called to his pilots. We've got boarding pods launching from the Defiance. Our job is to clear a path. Boarding pods? Asked one of his pilots, a young woman named Jackie Reeves. We're boarding them? The Admiral wants prisoners. Someone has to explain to the Council what happened here. Sam grinned beneath his helmet. Besides, where's the fun in just blowing them up? He pulled his fighter into a sharp turn, evading a stream of alien weapons fire. Around him, his squadron moved like they had practiced 1,000 times, covering each other, striking at weak points, making room for the larger ships behind them. On the Voice of Authority, Ambassador Zervex watched his fleet die. The tactical display showed ship after ship going dark. 8 vessels destroyed. 2 more disabled. Only his own flagship and 1 escort remained, and both were heavily damaged. We have to surrender, he said quietly. Captain Vorka turned on him with fury in her eyes. Surrender? To primitives? The Council will never accept such a disgrace. The Council will not have a choice. Zervex gestured at the display. We are defeated. Completely. Our subjugation fleet is 3 days away. If we continue to fight, we all die. And then there will be no one to tell the Council what happened. No one to warn them. Before Vorka could respond, the ship shook violently. Alarms screamed. The lights flickered. Hull breach on decks 7 through 12, reported a damage control officer. We're venting atmosphere. Engines are offline. Weapons are down. Zervex closed his eyes. It was over. Open a channel to the human flagship, he ordered. Tell them we surrender. When the battle ended, the silence was almost painful. Admiral Danny Carter stood on the bridge of the Defiance, staring at the field of wreckage that had been the Council fleet. 12 alien ships, the pride of a galactic empire, reduced to twisted metal and cooling gas. Humanity had won. Final count, sir, Commander Katie Morgan reported, her voice soft with disbelief. All 12 enemy vessels destroyed or captured. We lost 43 ships. Nearly 6,000 personnel. Danny nodded slowly. Each of those losses was a wound, a family that would never be whole again. But compared to what they had faced, compared to what could have happened, recovery operations, he ordered. I want search and rescue on every damaged ship. Find our people. Already underway, sir. On the captured flagship, Marine teams moved through the corridors, securing prisoners and assessing damage. Ambassador Zervex was found on the bridge, sitting alone in his command chair, his skin pale with shock. Lieutenant Ben Cooper, the Marine squad leader, approached him carefully. Ambassador Zervex, you are now a prisoner of the Earth Defense Force. If you cooperate, You will be treated fairly. Zirvex looked up at the human. Such a small creature. Such a young species. And yet here they stood, victorious, while the power of the council lay in ruins around them. How did you do this? The ambassador whispered. How did you build this fleet? How did you hide it from us? Ben shrugged. You came to our world expecting us to give up without a fight. You didn't bother to really look at us. You didn't try to understand what we're capable of. He paused, almost feeling sorry for the alien before him. That was your mistake. Zirvex was taken to a cell on the Defiance. He would be questioned later. His knowledge of Council military capabilities valuable beyond measure. But for now, he was left alone with his thoughts. Across the fleet, celebrations erupted. Soldiers who had trained for years, never knowing if they would be called to fight, embraced each other with tears in their eyes. On Earth, people flooded into the streets, staring up at the sky, where flashes of distant explosions could still be seen. Secretary General Lisa Grant addressed the world from Geneva. Her face was on every screen, her voice in every home. Today, humanity faced the greatest threat in our history, she said. An empire that has conquered countless worlds came to take our freedom. They expected us to surrender. They expected us to bow. She paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. We refused. The crowd before her erupted in cheers. This battle is won, Lisa continued, but the war is just beginning. The Galactic Council will not accept this defeat. They will come with larger fleets, with more terrible weapons. But we will be ready. Because today we have proven something that the galaxy needed to see. Her voice rose, filled with a fire that seemed to spread through every human who heard it. Humanity does not kneel, not to tyrants, not to empires, not to anyone. We will defend our world. We will protect our people. And we will teach the stars that Earth is not to be taken. On the bridge of the Defiance, Admiral Danny Carter watched the speech with quiet pride. Beside him, Commander Katie Morgan wiped tears from her eyes. We did it, she whispered. We actually did it. Danny put a hand on her shoulder. This is just the beginning, Katie. But for now, for today, let our people celebrate. They've earned it. Outside the viewport, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere out there, the Council's subjugation fleet was coming. More battles would follow. More lives would be lost. But humanity had taken its first stand, and the galaxy would never be the same. The news reached the Galactic Council 3 days after the battle. It arrived in the form of a desperate signal from Ambassador Zirvex's escort fleet, which had been destroyed before it could even reach the Sol system. High Counselor Vextham stood in the Great Chamber, surrounded by the holographic projections of 100 species, all staring at the tactical recording in disbelief. The humans had won. Not just won, but dominated. 12 ships of the Council, crewed by the finest officers of the Velcari, destroyed in less than 6 hours by a species that had only developed warp travel 15 years ago. This is impossible, declared Ambassador Trixna of the Corvan hegemony. The humans are primitives. They have no industrial base. They have no experience in space warfare. How could they have built such a fleet? More importantly, said Fleet Commander Zirax of the Military Council, how did we not know about it? Vextham raised a claw for silence. He was old, even by council standards, and he had ruled for over 1,000 years. In all that time, no species had ever successfully resisted integration. No species had ever defeated a council fleet. Until now, our intelligence failed us, he admitted. The humans found our crashed scout ship and used it to develop their own technology. They built their fleet in secret, hidden from our sensors, and when we came expecting surrender, they were ready. Then we crushed them, Zirax said flatly. Send the Grand Fleet, 1,000 ships, destroy their world and make an example of them. Can we? Asked Counselor Yen of the Collective, her voice soft with worry. If they defeated 12 ships with 300, what will they have when we arrive with 1,000? They have shown they can build quickly. They have shown they can fight. What if we are walking into another trap? The chamber fell silent. It was a question none of them wanted to consider. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Galactic Council was afraid. 3 weeks after the battle, Secretary General Lisa Grant stood before the Council in holographic form. The transmission came from the newly commissioned flagship of the Earth Fleet, the USS Resolute, positioned at the edge of the Sol system. She was flanked by Admiral Danny Carter and a team of military advisors. Behind them, visible through the flagship's massive viewport, was the rebuilt human fleet. Larger now, stronger, and growing every day. High Counselor Vextham, Lisa began, her voice calm and formal. I am here to discuss the terms of our relationship with the Galactic Council. Vextham studied the human woman carefully. She was small by most species standards, with soft skin and no natural weapons, and yet she faced 100 of the galaxy's most powerful beings without a trace of fear. You destroyed a Council diplomatic fleet, he said. You killed thousands of our people. You humiliated an empire that has ruled the stars for millennia. And now you wish to negotiate? Yes. The simple answer seemed to catch him off guard. You do not apologize? You do not offer explanations or excuses? Lisa shook her head. Your ambassador came to our world with a demand for surrender. He threatened to enslave our entire species. We defended ourselves. That requires no apology. You call it defense. We call it an act of war. Then we are at war. Lisa's voice hardened. And you should know that if you send another fleet to our system, we will destroy it just as we destroyed the first, and the next, and the one after that, for as long as it takes. Counselor Yen leaned forward. You cannot fight the entire galaxy, human. We have resources you cannot imagine. Fleets beyond counting. You would be ground to dust eventually. Perhaps, Lisa admitted. But how many ships would you lose in the process? How many soldiers? How many years would it take? And while you were focused on us, how many other species would see a chance to break free? She let the question hang in the air. We know our history is not unique, Lisa continued. We know you have conquered hundreds of worlds. We know there are species across the galaxy who live under your rule not because they chose to, but because they had no choice. How many of them are watching this conversation right now? How many of them are wondering if they could do what we did? Vextham's eyes narrowed. The human had touched on the Council's greatest fear. The Empire was built on the assumption that resistance was futile. If that assumption was broken, if other species began to believe they could fight back. What do you want? He asked finally. 3 things, Lisa said. First, recognition. Earth is a sovereign world. We do not accept protectorate status. We do not accept Council rule. We are an independent power, equal to any other. Unacceptable, said Fleet Commander Zerax. Second, Lisa continued, ignoring him. A mutual defense treaty. You do not attack us. We do not attack you. If external threats arise, we work together to address them. And third? Lisa's expression softened slightly, becoming almost sympathetic. Third, you let the other species choose. Hold referendums. Let them decide if they want to remain in the Council or seek independence. Those who wish to stay, you welcome as partners. Those who wish to leave, you let go peacefully. The chamber erupted in outrage. Species that had benefited from Council rule shouted their opposition. Military leaders demanded immediate retaliation. Chaos spread through the holographic gathering like wildfire, but Vextham remained silent, staring at the human woman. He was old enough to remember when the Council was young, when they had truly believed in unity and cooperation, before power corrupted them, before conquest became their way. He remembered what they were supposed to be, and he wondered if perhaps this small, fierce species from a tiny world was showing them something they had forgotten. Silence, he commanded, and slowly, the chamber obeyed. Secretary General Grant, your terms are unorthodox. They challenge everything the Council has built over 12,000 years. I know, Lisa said. You ask us to change everything we are, to admit that our way was wrong, to let go of power we have held for millennia. Yes. Vextham looked around the chamber at the species who had followed the Council's rule, some willingly, some not. He thought about the ships that had died above Earth. He thought about the message it would send if they tried to conquer the humans and failed again. "We will need time to consider your terms," he said at last. "This is not a decision that can be made quickly." Lisa nodded. "We understand. But while you consider, know this. We are not your enemies. We never wanted this war. We simply wanted to be free. There is room in the galaxy for all of us, if you are willing to share it." The transmission ended. On the bridge of the USS Resolute, Admiral Danny Carter stood beside Lisa as the holographic display faded. "Do you think they'll accept?" he asked. "Some of them will, some won't." Lisa turned to look out the viewport at the fleet holding position around them. "Either way, we're ready." Danny nodded slowly. 300 ships had grown to 500. Training programs were producing new crews every week. Research stations were developing new technologies, pushing further beyond what they had learned from the crashed alien craft. Humanity had taken its first step into the galaxy expecting wonder. They had found tyranny instead. And when the universe demanded they bow, they had answered the only way they knew how, with courage, with defiance, with the stubborn refusal to accept any fate they had not chosen for themselves. Commander Katie Morgan joined them at the viewport, a datapad in her hands. "Admiral, Secretary General, long-range sensors are picking up movement at the edge of Council space. Looks like they're repositioning their fleets." "Toward us or away from us?" Danny asked. Katie checked her readings. "Away. They're pulling back to defensive positions." Lisa allowed herself a small smile. "They're afraid. Good. Fear keeps them honest." "And if they change their minds?" Katie asked. "If they decide to attack after all?" "Come time. Capture all." Danny looked at the stars stretching out before them, cold and bright and full of possibility. "Then, we'll be here," he said. "Waiting. Ready. And we'll show them the same thing we showed Ambassador Zirvex." He turned to face the bridge crew, the men and women who had given everything to defend their world. They looked back at him with pride in their eyes. "Humanity does not surrender," Danny said. "We never have. We never will. And anyone who thinks otherwise is welcome to test that truth." The bridge crew straightened, their resolve visible in every face. Outside, the stars burned on. Somewhere out there, the council was watching, waiting, trying to decide what to do about the small blue world that had changed everything. But Earth was no longer small. It was the birthplace of a species that had refused to kneel, a species that had looked at the universe and demanded its place in it. The age of humanity had begun, and the galaxy would never forget.